Okay. Deep breath. This isn't easy. Putting this out there feels like peeling my own skin off, layer by layer, exposing raw, pulsing nerves to the cold air. But maybe someone needs to hear it. Maybe it stops one person from walking blindly into the trap I did. So here goes. My name is Raven. And this is how the man I trusted most in the world, Elian, used my deepest wound to lock me away with his secret. It started well, it started long before this part. It started with me being 19, lost, desperate for belonging after my family imploded. Found it, or thought I did, in the warm, enveloping embrace of the light bearers. Sounds innocuous, right? It wasn't. Not inherently violent, just insidious. A slow erosion. Your thoughts aren't your own. Your desires are selfish. Your worth is measured only by your devotion. The outside world? Corrupt. Dangerous. Poison. I gave them 8 years. 8 years of my life, my identity, poured into their mold. Until something cracked. A glimpse of the outside through a forbidden internet session, a whispered conversation overheard that didn't match the doctrine, a tiny, terrified seed of doubt that refused to die. Leaving was apocalyptic. Not physically. Mentally. Emotionally. Imagine your entire reality, the scaffolding holding you up, suddenly kicked away. You're free-falling in a void. That's what it felt like. The guilt was crushing. Had I betrayed God? Had I doomed myself? The fear was paralyzing. How do you be in a world you were taught to fear and distrust? I was a ghost haunting my own life. Enter Elian. My anchor. My lighthouse in that terrifying storm. We'd known each other peripherally before he was friends with my older brother. When he heard I'd left the Lightbearers, he reached out. Not with pity, but with this fierce, protective understanding. He'd done his master's in psychology, specialized in trauma and coercive control. He got it, he said. He understood the psychological prison I was still trapped in, even though my body was free. It's not just about leaving the physical space, Raven, he'd murmur, holding me as I sobbed, shaking from nightmares that weren't quite dreams, more like psychic aftershocks. The programming runs deep. Like malware in your operating system. It needs deprogramming. Proper, intensive therapy tailored to cult survivors. He made it sound so logical. So necessary. He painted a picture of me, years down the line, still flinching at shadows, still hearing the elders' voices in my head, sabotaging relationships, unable to truly live, if I didn't address the residual programming head-on. He said mainstream therapy wouldn't cut it, it needed a specific, immersive approach. He knew people, he said. Experts. He could help. I was desperate. Terrified. Fragile. Elian was strong, confident, offering a lifeline. I clutched it. Of course I did. He became my everything, my therapist, my protector, my lover. My salvation. He moved me into his apartment. Slowly, carefully, he started the work. Gentle questioning. Challenging ingrained beliefs. Reframing my terror of the outside world as a symptom of the programming. It felt right. Painful, but necessary. Like lancing a wound. I trusted him implicitly. He was dismantling the prison brick by brick. Or so I thought. Then came the next phase. Elian grew serious one evening, his brow furrowed with concern. The city, he sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. It's too much, Raven. Too many triggers. Too much noise. The constant assault on your senses is hindering your progress. Reinforcing the anxiety the light bearers instilled about the chaos outside. He leaned forward, taking my hands. What you need is quiet. Space. True immersion in safety. Away from everything. He described a place. A sanctuary. A farm belonging to friends of his, distant, peaceful, nestled in rolling hills miles from the nearest town. Isolated. Secure. Perfect for intensive, focused deprogramming away from any external influences that could trigger a relapse into the cult mindset. He would come with me, of course. Be my constant support. And Maura, his colleague, another therapist specializing in religious trauma, would join us to assist. A dedicated team, just for me. It sounded extreme. But framed within Elian's narrative of my fragile recovery, it made a terrifying kind of sense. The city did feel overwhelming. Crowds made my skin crawl. Sirens sounded like alarms from my past. The sheer choice in a supermarket could induce panic. Maybe he was right. Maybe this isolation was the only way to truly purge the poison. The guilt trip sealed it. Don't you want to be free, Raven? Haight asked, his voice soft but laced with an edge of disappointment when I hesitated. Truly free. Not just physically out, but mentally liberated. This is the hard part, sweetheart. The part where you choose healing, even when it's scary. How could I refuse? Refusing felt like choosing the cult, choosing my brokenness. Choosing against him. So, we went. Packed my few belongings into his SUV. Drove for hours, the cityscape dissolving into suburbs, then towns, then nothing but winding roads flanked by forests and fields. The isolation deepened with every mile, a physical manifestation of the mental separation Elian insisted I needed. My phone signal died an hour out. Better this way, Elian said gently, patting my knee. No distractions. No outside voices. Just the work. The farm, when we arrived, was undeniably beautiful. Picturesque, even. A weathered but sturdy farmhouse, a red barn, fields stretching towards distant tree lines under a vast, open sky. Peaceful. Quiet. Oppressively so. Maura was already there. She met us on the porch, tall, athletic, with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her watchful grey eyes. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She enveloped me in a hug that felt performative. Too tight, too familiar for someone I'd just met. Raven. So good to finally meet you properly. Elian's told me so much. Don't you worry, sweetie, we're going to get you all sorted out here. Her voice was bright, chirpy, but there was an underlying steel. An assumption of intimacy that set my teeth on edge, though I dismissed it as my own awkwardness, my cult-induced suspicion of strangers. The first few days were a blur of settling in and establishing routine. Elian and Maura were a unit. They moved around each other in the farmhouse kitchen with an easy, synchronized rhythm that spoke of long familiarity. Pouring coffee, making meals, discussing the schedule for my deprogramming in low voices while I sat at the table, feeling like a patient, an object of their well-intentioned scrutiny. The therapy sessions began. Long hours in the small, stuffy room Elian had set up as an office. Him and Maura, facing me. Probing. Questioning. revisiting my time in the Lightbearers with excruciating detail. It felt off. Not like therapy I'd imagined or read about. It felt less about helping me understand and process, and more about reinforcing their narrative. My doubts about the cult were celebrated. My moments of missing the structure, the certainty, the belonging, even the painful parts were immediately pathologized as programming resurgence, Stockholm Syndrome, or trauma bonding. Any expression of sadness or confusion about leaving was swiftly redirected as a victory over the cult's hold. "See, Raven?" Elian would say, exchanging a significant look with Mora whenever I expressed something vaguely positive about my past life, however qualified. That's the insidious nature of the programming talking. They make you mourn your own captivity. Mora, note that down, clear indicator of level 3 residual indoctrination. Mora would nod solemnly, scribbling on her notepad. Absolutely. Textbook. We need to intensify the cognitive restructuring on that point. I felt perpetually wrong-footed. My own feelings felt like alien things, potentially dangerous symptoms to be dissected and corrected. The isolation pressed in. No internet. No phone. No car. The nearest neighbor was miles away. The vast fields and silent woods felt less like freedom and more like the walls of a very large, very beautiful cell. My only human contact was Elian and Mora. My reality was solely defined by them. And then, the little things started piling up. Tiny splinters under my skin that I couldn't quite ignore, try as I might to attribute them to my own paranoia, my damaged perception. It was the way Mora would touch Elian. Not overtly. A hand lingering on his shoulder as she reached past him for a mug. Her head brushing against his as they stood side by side looking out the kitchen window. The way she'd laugh at something he said, throwing her head back, touching his arm, a laugh that seemed intimate. More intimate than a professional colleague warranted. It was the shared glances. Silent conversations passing between them over my head during meals. A raised eyebrow from Mora, a slight nod from Elian. A look of amusement they'd share if I stumbled over a word or expressed a naive thought about the outside world, a thought they'd previously encouraged me to voice as part of my re-education. It was the closed doors. The hushed conversations in the hallway late at night when they thought I was asleep. The sound of soft laughter drifting from Elian's study. Once, I got up for water and saw the sliver of light under his door. I heard Mora's voice, low and intimate, not her professional tone. "She's so fragile, Eli. Like a little bird. It's almost sweet." And Elian's responding murmur, too low to catch, followed by another soft laugh from her. I stood frozen in the dark hallway, my bare feet cold on the wooden floor, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. It was how Elian started subtly changing. His patience, once infinite, began to wear thin. If I questioned a technique, expressed fatigue from the long sessions, or simply wanted a moment alone to walk in the fields, his concern could quickly curdle into impatience, even a flash of something colder. "Raven, we talked about this," he'd say, his voice tight. "Resisting the process is the programming. It's the cult's last line of defense within you. Mora and I are trying to help you, but you have to meet us halfway. Stop fighting the healing." Mora would invariably chime in, her voice smooth, reasonable, but with an undercurrent of reproach. "He's right, sweetie. Self-sabotage is a common trauma response. Recognize it for what it is. Surrender to the process. Surrender." That word started echoing in my head. It was the same word the Lightbearers used. Surrender your will. Surrender your doubts. Surrender to the higher purpose. Now Elian and Mara were telling me to surrender to them. To their process. The parallels were chilling, but voicing them felt impossible. That would be the ultimate programming talking, wouldn't it? Seeing manipulation where there was only care. Paranoia where there was protection. The farm itself became a character in this suffocating play. The endless fields under the huge sky, instead of feeling liberating, felt like an expanse designed to highlight my insignificance, my utter dependence. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, watchful. I started having panic attacks again, the kind I hadn't had since the first weeks after leaving the light bearers. Crippling waves of terror with no clear trigger, leaving me gasping, shaking, convinced I was dying. I'd crawled to Elian, desperate for comfort. His response was clinical. Oh, yes, he'd say, holding me while I trembled, but his touch felt distant, analytical. This is good, Raven. Very good. It means we're reaching the core trauma. The panic is the cult's control mechanism flaring up as we dismantle it. Breathe through it. Let it happen. It's a purge. Hate looked at Mara. Classic abreaction. We're definitely on the right track. Mara would nod, her expression one of detached professional interest. Fascinating. The somatic response is quite pronounced. We should document the intensity and duration. My raw terror was reduced to a data point in their deprogramming case study. Their validation felt hollow, devoid of the warmth Elian once had. Where was the man who held me through the night after my escape? Where was the tenderness? It felt buried under layers of this clinical, detached mission. And always, Mara was there. Watching. Noting. A constant, unsettling presence. One afternoon, overwhelmed by a particularly grueling session where they dissected my feelings of guilt over leaving a specific friend behind in the cult, I broke down. Sobs wrecked my body. Not the quiet tears of therapy, but deep, gut-wrenching cries of grief and confusion. I needed comfort. Human comfort. Not analysis. Elian sighed, a sound of profound weariness. Raven, this regression is counterproductive. You're indulging the trauma instead of observing it. He looked at Mara. Perhaps she needs some time alone to regulate. The emotional flooding is hindering integration. Mara stood up. I'll take her outside. Some air might help. She led me, still shuddering with sobs, out onto the porch. Instead of sitting with me, offering silent support, she leaned against the railing, looking out at the fields, her posture radiating impatience. After a few minutes of my choked crying, she spoke, her voice devoid of its usual forced warmth. You know, Raven, she said, not looking at me, you really need to get a grip. This wallowing doesn't help anyone. Least of all Elian. He's pouring everything into helping you, and this, she gestured vaguely at my hunched form. This hysterics is just ungrateful. And exhausting. The words hit me like a physical blow. Hysterics. Ungrateful. Exhausting. This wasn't therapy. This was contempt. I lifted my head, tears streaming down my face, and saw her profile. There was no empathy there. Only irritation. And something else, a flicker of possessiveness when she said Elian's name. A cold certainty began to seep through my panic. This wasn't about helping me. Something else was happening here. Later that night, the dam finally cracked. I woke up thirsty. The house was silent. Moonlight streamed through the hallway window. As I passed Elian's study, I saw the door was slightly ajar. And I heard them. Not hushed therapy talk. Not professional consultation. I heard Maura's voice, low, throaty, utterly unlike her professional tone. Eli, come on. She's finally asleep. We've been waiting all day. A soft murmur from Elian. A laugh from Maura. Then silence. A different kind of silence. Thick. Heavy. Intimate. My blood turned to ice. I didn't need to see. The sound was enough. The tone. The implication. It painted a picture more vivid and devastating than anything I could have imagined. I stood there, frozen again, but this time not in dread, but in a white-hot wave of pure, shattering betrayal. The carefully constructed world Elian had built around me, the deprogramming, the sanctuary, the necessary isolation, crumbled into dust, revealing the rotten foundation beneath. It wasn't therapy. It was a cage. A beautifully constructed prison on a remote farm. And the guards weren't just my jailers, they were lovers. Using my deepest trauma, my most vulnerable state, to isolate me while they carried on their affair right under my nose, disguised as my salvation. The cult deprogramming was the perfect cover. Any protest, any doubt, any sign of distress could be, and was, pathologized as programming. Who would question it? Who was here to see? I was utterly alone. Complicit in my own imprisonment because I believed the lie. The rage that rose in me then was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It burned away the lingering fog of indoctrination, both old and new. It burned away the fragility. It was a primal, cleansing fire. They thought I was broken. They thought I was theirs to manipulate. They thought their gaslighting was absolute. They were wrong. I didn't confront them that night. The calculating part of me, the survival part buried deep under years of being controlled, finally surfaced. Play the game, it whispered. Play the good patient. The grateful, fragile bird. I crept back to my room, my mind racing, cold and clear for the first time in months, perhaps years. The panic attacks, the confusion, the guilt, they hadn't just been the cult's residue. They had been the result of living in a constant state of low-grade terror, manipulated by the two people I was supposed to trust most. My nervous system hadn't been purging cult programming, it had been screaming at me that I was in active danger. The next morning, I was different. Calmer. Too calm. I made breakfast. I smiled at Maura, a brittle, careful thing. I met Elian's assessing gaze with wide, docile eyes. I had a lot of thoughts after yesterday, I said, my voice deliberately soft, hesitant. I think you were right, Elian. About the wallowing. It was self-indulgent. A relic. I want to focus. Really focus on the work today. I saw the flicker of satisfaction in his eyes, the slight relaxation in Maura's shoulders. They exchanged a glance. See. The breakthrough we needed. They bought it. Of course they did. They were so convinced of their own narrative, of my pliability. The sessions continued, but now I was observing them. Noting the subtle cues, the coded language. The way Elian's hand would accidentally brush Maura's when passing notes. The proprietary way Shed refilled his coffee. The shared jokes with underlying meanings I wasn't privy to. It was a performance, and I was the captive audience, finally seeing the strings. My mission became singular, escape. Not just physically, though that was paramount. But mentally. I needed proof. Not for them, but for myself, for the authorities, for anyone who might question the crazy cult survivor later. I started paying meticulous attention. Where were the car keys kept? Elian's jacket pocket, always. Were there any other phones? Maura sometimes used an old-looking mobile, probably a burner, kept in her bag. What was the schedule? When were they both most distracted? During their consultation walks in the fields after lunch. I also started subtly testing the boundaries of my programming. During sessions, I'd cautiously introduce a positive memory of the outside world before the cult, a childhood picnic, a favorite book, carefully framing it not as nostalgia for the cult, but as proof of a pre-programmed self they were helping me reclaim. Elian ate it up, seeing it as progress. Excellent, Raven. Reconnecting with your authentic core before the contamination. Maura looked slightly less convinced but didn't challenge it. It was a small wedge. I volunteered for more chores, seeking time alone outside the house. Feeding the few chickens they kept, a prop for the simple life aesthetic, I realized. Pulling weeds in the neglected garden patch near the barn. It was during one of these solitary weeding sessions, hidden by the tall stalks of unruly sunflowers, that I saw it. Elian and Maura, walking towards the old apple orchard at the far edge of the property. They thought they were out of sight. He pulled her close, his hand sliding down her back, lingering low. She turned into him, her arms going around his neck. They kissed. Not a peck. A deep, hungry, familiar kiss that spoke of countless repetitions. Then, laughing softly, they disappeared into the dappled shade of the trees. The nausea was immediate and overwhelming. I bent double, retching into the dirt, tears of rage and humiliation scalding my cheeks. But alongside the horror was a grim vindication. I knew it. Now I had seen it. This wasn't paranoia. This was fact. I needed that burner phone. It was my only lifeline. Maura's bag was usually in the living room or their shared study. Getting it unseen was the challenge. My chance came a few days later. A sudden, fierce summer storm rolled in after lunch, blackening the sky, unleashing torrential rain and cracking thunder. Elian and Maura were in his study, the door closed, likely discussing the weather or other things. The living room was empty. Maura's oversized canvas tote bag was slung over the arm of the sofa. Heart pounding like a trapped bird against my ribs, I moved silently. The roar of the rain on the roof covered any small sound. I found the phone quickly, buried under scarves and notebooks. An old, basic flip phone. My fingers trembled as I flipped it open. Please have battery. Please have signal. One bar flickered weakly. It was enough. I didn't dare call 911 directly. What if they heard? What if it traced back instantly? I needed a message. A lifeline thrown into the void. I thought of my brother, Liam. We weren't close anymore, not since before the cult, but he was family. He'd been wary of Elian from the start, though I'd dismissed it as overprotectiveness. Now, I prayed he'd listen. With shaking fingers, I typed a text, knowing every second was a risk. Liam. Raven. Farm. Not safe. Eli plus Maura. Not therapy. Trap. Help. Coordinates. I frantically recalled the numbers from a crumpled envelope I'd sealed with the farm's address for delivery. No phone. This not mine. Delete this message. Please. I hit send. The tiny message send icon appeared. I deleted the send message from the phone's log. Closed it. Buried it back deep in Mora's bag exactly as I'd found it. Then I slipped into the small downstairs bathroom, locked the door, and slid down onto the cold tile floor, pressing my fist to my mouth to stifle the sobs of terror and desperate hope. Had it gone through? Would Liam believe it? Would he even get it? The single bar had vanished. The storm raged outside, mirroring the tempest within me. The waiting was agony. Days crawled by. I played my part with excruciating precision. The docile patient. Making small, positive observations about the farm, about my progress. Elian seemed pleased, even affectionate again, which made my skin crawl. Mora watched me with a slightly narrowed gaze, a hint of suspicion I hadn't seen before. Had she noticed her bag was disturbed? Did she feel the shift in me? I doubled down on the performance, volunteering to bake bread, asking innocent questions about farm life, anything to seem harmless, absorbed, grateful. Then, on the 4th day after the text, it happened. I was shelling peas on the porch swing, a picture of rustic tranquility, while Elian and Mora were inside. The sound of a vehicle, unusual out here, made me look up. Not a delivery truck. A county sheriff's SUV, followed by a dark sedan, crunching slowly up the long gravel driveway. My breath hitched. Liam. Hate come. Hate believed me. Elian appeared at the screen door, frowning. Mora was right behind him, her face pale. Who's that? Elian muttered, stepping outside. The sheriff's SUV stopped. 2 deputies got out, hands resting casually near their belts. The sedan door opened, and Liam unfolded himself, his face grim, his eyes scanning the porch until they found me. Relief warred with fierce protectiveness in his gaze. Can I help you, officers? Elian asked, his voice projecting calm authority, but I heard the underlying tension. Sheriff Dawson, the older deputy said, nodding. We received a concerning welfare check request regarding a Raven Sloan at this address. He looked past Elian directly at me. Miss Sloan? Are you alright? This was it. The moment of truth. All eyes were on me, Elian's suddenly sharp and warning, Mora's wide with panic barely concealed, Liam's pleading and urgent, the deputy's watchful. The fragile persona I'd constructed over the past weeks threatened to shatter. I could feel Elian's silent command, play the patient. Be fragile. Confused. I stood up slowly, the bowl of peas forgotten in my lap, clattering to the porch floor. I looked at Elian, then at Mora, letting the mask slip just enough to show the raw terror and betrayal beneath, but not enough to seem hysterical. Then I looked straight at the sheriff, my voice trembling but clear. No, I whispered, then stronger, pushing the word out. No, I'm not alright. I pointed a shaking finger at Elian and Mora. They brought me here. They said it was therapy. To help me after the cult. But it's not. It's a lie. My voice caught on the unspeakable betrayal. He's having an affair with her. They're together. They trapped me here. They took my phone. They tell me everything I feel is crazy. They wouldn't let me leave. The words tumbled out, raw and desperate. Elian stepped forward, his face a mask of wounded concern. Officers, please. Raven is a vulnerable individual. She's recovering from severe psychological trauma inflicted by a cult. She's experiencing paranoia and delusions as part of her deprogramming process. We have her treatment plan documented. Maura is my colleague, assisting me. He gestured towards the house. This is a licensed therapeutic retreat environment. Maura found her voice, smooth and professional, though her knuckles were white where she gripped the doorframe. It's true, Sheriff. Raven is under significant distress. Her perception is unreliable right now. We've been working tirelessly to help her. The sheriff looked between them, then back at me, his expression unreadable. Miss Sloane, do you wish to leave this property right now? Yes. The word burst from me, laced with all the pent-up terror and fury. Please. Yes. I want to leave with my brother. Right now. Liam moved instantly, stepping past the deputies towards the porch steps. She's coming with me. Elian moved to block him. Now, wait just a minute. You can't just remove her. She's in the middle of critical therapy. She's not competent to make that decision. This could trigger a severe regression. His voice rose, losing its practiced calm, edged with panic and a hint of the controlling anger I'd glimpsed before. The sheriff put a firm hand on Elian's chest, stopping him. Sir, step back. If the lady says she wants to leave, she leaves. We can sort out the competency and therapy details elsewhere, with proper oversight. Right now, she's expressing a clear desire to depart. He nodded to the other deputy. Escort Miss Sloane to her brother's vehicle. Help her gather any essential personal belongings immediately. The next minutes were a blur. Elian protested, sputtering about ethics, malpractice, Raven's fragile state. Maura stood frozen, silent, her face ashen, the professional facade utterly crumbled, revealing the frightened woman beneath. Liam was a solid presence beside me as a deputy followed us to my small room. I threw clothes haphazardly into my old duffel bag, my hands shaking not with fear now, but with adrenaline and the desperate need to be gone. I grabbed the journal Elian had insisted I keep for therapy notes, my own words, documenting the sessions, my doubts, my distress, could be evidence. As we walked back through the living room, bag in hand, I stopped in front of Elian and Maura. The deputies were close, watchful. Liam's hand was on my shoulder. Elian looked at me, his eyes wide, pleading, trying to project that old concern. Raven, sweetheart, please think about what you're doing. This is the trauma talking. You need help. We can help you. The endearment, now, felt like a violation. I looked at him, then at Maura, who wouldn't meet my eyes. All the pain, the betrayal, the gaslighting, the months of manipulated terror condensed into a white-hot point of clarity. No, Elian, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, cold. The only trauma here is what you did. You didn't save me from a cult. You built a new one. Just for me. With just 2 members. I glanced at Maura. Enjoy your kingdom. It's a little emptier now. I turned my back on them, on the beautiful, poisonous farm, and walked out the door into the uncertain freedom of the rain-washed afternoon, leaning on my brother, not looking back. The aftermath is ongoing. There are investigations, psychological malpractice, potential unlawful confinement, fraud. My journal, the testimony, Liam's record of my frantic text, it's building a case. It's slow. It's re-traumatizing. Elian and Maura are spinning their narrative hard: the unstable cult survivor, the misunderstood therapist, the tragic misunderstanding. People believe them. Some people always believe the charming, professional facade. The betrayal cuts deeper than the light bearers ever did. That was a systemic evil I walked into blind. This was personal. This was someone I loved, someone I trusted with my shattered self, weaponizing that trust in the most intimate, cruel way possible. He didn't just cheat on me, he cheated me of my recovery, my safety, my faith in the very concept of help. The panic attacks still come. The nightmares are different now, not of the elders, but of Maura's laugh echoing in the farmhouse, of Elian's disappointed eyes, of endless fields with no way out. Trusting anyone feels like walking on broken glass. Therapy now, real therapy, with someone vetted independently, someone who knows the whole story, is about untangling the damage Elian inflicted, disguised as healing. But I'm out. I'm free. Physically. Mentally, it's a work in progress. Some days the anger fuels me. Some days the grief pulls me under. The feeling of being so profoundly fooled, so utterly violated in my vulnerability, is a heavy cloak. Why am I telling you this? Not for sympathy, though understanding helps. Not for revenge, though seeing them face consequences would be something. I'm telling you because predators come in many forms. Sometimes they wear the face of a savior. Sometimes they speak the language of healing. They exploit the wounds you show them, not to mend them, but to widen them into cages. If something feels off, listen. Even if it's whispered under layers of gaslighting and expert terminology. Even if the person telling you it's all in your head is the one you love most, the one you think holds the key to your sanity. Your intuition, that gut deep knowing, is the one thing they can't truly reprogram. It's your lifeline. Cling to it. Fight for it. Even when, especially when, they tell you it's the enemy. My name is Raven. I survived 2 cults. The second one was the hardest to see, because it was built just for me, by the man who swore he'd set me free. See the cage, even when it's disguised as sanctuary. Your gut knows. Trust it. Before the door locks behind you.